Good evening, all. Hope I am audible to you. Any one of you, just give me a confirmation. Am I clear? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you audible.
Okay. The video is also fine, I believe. Welcome. Thanks for coming. So today, both me and Mr. Madalaimuthu will be taking classes. We will start with a basic area in psychology, perception. So I'll be going through that using my PowerPoint presentation. After that, I have a small quiz kind of thing for memory. Always these fundamentals are very, very important. So the emerging areas and other kind of things, yes, they are important too. But the chunk of the questions do come from the basics and fundamentals. So today we will be taking up these two things. And Mr. Madalaimuthu would be taking up a case study probably. So shall we go? I'll just share my screen, and if there are any issues, please let me know. Are you able to see my screen? Anyone of
Yes,
you?
sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
fine. Uh, so, if you had attended the webinar which we did last week, uh, I did mention about, and if Madalaimuthu also did mention about certain basic books, and one book is by Picarelli. There are various editions. This is the global edition. We also have the Indian edition. I'm taking up information from this book, as we always believe, whether it is one book or two books, it doesn't matter. But are you thorough with the information present in that particular book that you are studying? That's more important. Having a control over your understanding of the concepts is very, very important. So let's just take you through whatever is there in this book under the perception. So normally when we define perception, we always try to differentiate two concepts, sensation and perception. So sensation is something more kind of basic process where the physical sensations or any kind of sensations are converted into biochemical sensations, which we call as transduction, which happens more at a basic level, and the perception happens at a higher level, higher brain level. In fact, in general, perceptions work on the basis of sensation. Basically, whatever you get as sensations, that is organized, selected, organized, and interpreted. Here you could see there are a couple of words. Here there are three keywords. Given moment, sensations experienced at any given moment. So perception is always that, in general, a conscious experience of things happening to you at a given moment. So you interpret it, which happens at a higher brain level. Sensation is just a mechanical, process at the be it eyes or ears, or that is sensation. But to give it some kind of meaning, to give it some kind of shape, that is the process of interpretation, which happens at a higher level. And whatever comes to you, it is not taken just like that. You might have heard about this top-down processing and bottom-up processing. There is always both these processes work. So whatever comes in is not blindly taken the same way. You organize it. You select some things in these sensations to come inside. For example, if you keep your eyes open, whatever is in front of your eye, everything will impinge on your retina. All the things will impinge on your retina. But you may not be attending to all those that are in your retina. That is where the selection process comes. So selection is there. There is this organization part, and there is the interpretation part. Three parts are there. And this is a moment-to-moment kind of thing. And the word experience itself is a very important thing. So if you have to put an equivalent word to perception, it is experience, a conscious experience. But there are exceptions to these things, whatever I'm saying. Perception very rarely can happen without sensations. Perception can happen below the conscious threshold, which you call subception or subliminal perception. Those things are always there. So that interpretation is a meaningful fashion. So this is how you go through the definitions multiple times so that you get a sense of exactly what it means. What are the keywords? So I may be spending a lot of time on this simple sentence, but take it from me, it is these clarity of whatever we are studying, be it a definition of a concept, you have to be thorough. Every single keyword, you should remember it clearly, and you should be able to differentiate one concept from related or similar concept. Moving on to the next slide. Perception always is subjective, whatever it is. It might be just, just imagine somebody with color blindness. For them, the world would be, they would see it in a different way. That is something, genetically different. You and that person are different. But even if you are not that genetically different, because of your learning, because of your expectation, because of your past experience, you might interpret things in a very, very different way. So there is always a possibility that two people reaching two different interpretations. Not an interpretation, I told you the three processes: selection, organization, and interpretation. All these three might be very different for each person. Definitely, there is even, you might have heard about this word perceptual style. Perceptual style. The very word perceptual style refers to personality differences, unique ways of perceiving the world. So those things are always there, but ultimately you should also understand that as human beings, we are all bound by some basic principles of perception which are very similar. We all have very similar kind of perceptual laws and rules that control us. Okay, so the individuality might be there, but you should also at the same time understand that it is not like each one will perceive completely in different ways. This is something, this is a paradox. Yes, there is individual differences in perception, no doubt about it. But at the same time, there are something that is common to all of us. Let's go into that. What's common? What are the common laws of perception that binds all of us? This is something, which is very, very important. This perceptual constancy. The world is actually very dynamic. Continuously, things change around you. The light that reaches your eyes, the images in front of you, the position where you are standing. There is a lot of movement around you. The smells increases, decreases. Every aspect of sensation, stimuli that reaches you, they are not same. They keep changing. The world is not a very fixed kind of experience. But if you start succumbing to these differences, like for example, if you imagine a person walking away from you, that person's image on your retina will become smaller and smaller and smaller as that person goes far away from you. But doesn't mean that that person is becoming shrinking. You still know that person is 5 feet or 6 feet tall, and that's it. I always perceive constancy. Without constancy, you may not be able to adapt to your day-to-day life. So perceptual constancy is a very important constant in your life. Without which you will go mad. So let's understand what is this perceptual constancy in little bit detail. One is size constancy. I did mention this example just now. Somebody who is walking away from you, actually the image changes on your retina, but your brain doesn't interpret that this person is becoming a dwarf, this person is becoming smaller. No, you know that it's the same person who is walking away from you. So we are maintaining size constancy. Not only a person, it could be any vehicle that is moving away from you. Whatever it is, there is always the size constancy. In fact, we will later go through certain illusions, which are exactly because of misapplied size constancy. Size constancy is something that's very adaptive for us, but sometimes it can lead us astray, and it can make us see illusions. Okay, so size constancy is one type of perceptual constancy. Another type of constancy is shape constancy. So the shape constancy is, for example, if you look at this picture, when the door is there and it opens, that door definitely changes its shape. Or this one which you see here, the coin, when you toss it, its shape is not same. Just imagine you freeze this movement, and at one point it can be a thin slice, something like not like a spherical thing, but something a thin line. But still, that it has not become this circular coin has not become a line. That is shape constant. Many things that might actually, from the position where you are standing or moving, it will look different, but you still doesn't get confused that what is in front of me, has it become something else? No, there is that shape is the same, and you are able to make sense that the shape has not changed in spite of its representation on the retina, in spite of the change in the projection of that object in your retina, in the eye. Still that it's the same. So that is a shape constant. The other one is the brightness constancy. You are wearing a particular color shirt. You are standing in a shade or you are standing in sunlight. Definitely the shade would look, that particular color of that shirt or the dress would look slightly different. But still, I don't get completely confused about it, thinking that is one color and now the color has changed. I definitely clearly know that the person has not changed his or her dress, in spite of moving from shadow to light or light to shadow, because of the brightness constancy. And there are movement constancy, and there are other type of constancies. These constancies helps us to adapt to life. So perceptual constancy is something, it happens to higher level. When you look at the sensations, things keep changing, things are not same. But at a higher level, perceptual level, interpretation level, we always make adjustments at the brain level to perceive constancy. Okay, am I clear? Can I move further? Okay, so I did talk about this. So perceptual constancy is common to everyone. We are all capable of maintaining perceptual constancy, be it size, shape, movement, color, brightness. Then we are talking about the word Gestalt or Gestalt, a German word which means wholeness, complete. So you have this Berlin school of Gestalt psychology. There are three people who are very important: Max Wertheimer, Kurt Kofka, and Wolfgang Kohler. These are the three pioneers when it comes to of course, there are other people who are predecessors of these people, but I'm sticking to these three names: Max Wertheimer, Kurt Kofka, and Wolfgang Kohler. So these people have studied perception, learning, problem solving, memory, a lot more psychological process from the perspective called Gestaltist perspective. And let's see what their research has provided us. So the common things that bound all of us. One thing is figure-ground relationship. We automatically perceive, be it music, be it a picture in front of you, anything, any kind of sensation. You could always identify what is the figure and what is the ground. Okay, we automatically divide our perceptual world into figure, ground, into two types. So what is this figure and what is this ground? How do we differentiate it? Sometimes we get confused because of certain types of drawings which are called as ambiguous figures, reversible figures. In those things, it's very confusing. What is figure and what is ground? And another thing is, like, for example, you might know about this military uniforms, the camouflage uniforms. You might have seen in movies like Rambo or any kind of military movie where the kind of grease paint they put on there, or when they hide behind a tree, or the kind of dress they wear, and it actually breaks this distinction between figure and ground. It breaks this distinction between figure and ground, and because of that, you are not able to identify a person standing there. Okay, that is the idea of camouflaging. But normally, if it is not camouflaging or if it is not reversible figures, we would be able to separate our perceptual world into something called figure, something called ground. So what differentiates these two things? As you could see here, a figure that stands out in good contour. There is a contour. What is a contour? A clear-cut transition from be it color or brightness, or so you could see a border. Exactly, the figure has a distinct shape, whereas the ground is more homogeneous. It is indistinct. It does not have any clear borders. As you could see here, the buildings and the skies or the ground, and Batman serves as the figure. It has a clear kind of contour, where you could make out the silhouette of Batman. So that is how this figure and ground difference is figured out. Apart from that, there are principles of usually this figure-ground relationship and the laws of grouping. They are put together as called as laws of primitive organization. Laws of primitive organization. So that is something we are all born with. We are all having it. That's the way all human beings perceive the world. So what are these laws of grouping? So I have listed here 5, but I would tell about some more when I go to the next slides, the use of pictures. So here I have listed out proximity, similarity, closure, continuity, and common region. So we will see them as pictures. These are nice pictures where the word Gestalt itself is used as a demonstration for these principles. So you might have all heard about this closure. So the G is not a perfect G. There are here and there cuts, but still you perceive it as G. You mentally close it. Then you see the common fate. Just imagine that there are 3 E's actually standing back to back. Basically, how they call it is, if anything moves together, they are considered to be having a common fate. Then you have this continuation. So you could actually break this dollar sign. You don't need to see it as a dollar sign or a yes encircling a rod. You could also see it as the purple thing starts, then it becomes a semicircle. You don't break it that way. You basically see the purple rod as a continuous rod, and this yes as a continuous yes encircling the rod. That is what we call as continuation. Then you have 2 T's here. Because they are looking similar, we put them together. Then in figure ground, they have shown this Eiffel Tower kind of design inside the A. So you could see that that has a distinct contour, and the light blue is the background, and the dark blue contoured kind of thing is the figure. Then you see proximity. The L word is written with different boxes of different colors, and those colors are put close to each other. The purple is arranged closer, and the light blue is arranged closer. So based on this closeness in space, they are grouped together. And finally, the symmetry is a principle. We always see symmetry. Even if it's a very chaotic kind of image in front of you, you will always see it as falling in some kind of pattern. That is human nature, to see a kind of a symmetrical pattern. So basically, in fashion world, we might sometimes come up with asymmetrical dresses, but inherently, most of you and me, all of us, we prefer symmetry. I will continue this. On the top, I have written a word called contiguity. Contiguity. So contiguity is closeness in time. For example, I'll show you in pictures that will make it clear. So the ventriloquists, they always keep this toy, the puppet, and they, without moving their lips or mouth, they speak, and they move this puppet's mouth. Of course, this works because of intersensory perception in a way, because the movement which you visually see and the sound which which you hear, it is not exactly coming from the mouth of the puppet. It's coming from the throat of this ventriloquist. But we tend to connect this mouth movements of this puppet and the sound together. That is happening because of intersensory perception. We are integrating two sensations together because of the dominance of the visual clues. In this case, we always give weightage to the visual clues than to other clues because we are visual beings. But here in contiguity, because that the movement of this thing and the speech of the ventriloquist are placed very close in time, very close in time. You perceive it as together, a unit, a single unit. So contiguity is when two things are occurring close together in time, you see them as an integrated whole. So this is contiguity. Okay. Another one, I did mention it, common fate. Anything that moves together are considered to be a single entity or a single group. So common fate based on movement, stimulus elements are likely to be perceived as a unit if they move together, a group of birds. So you know that that's a single group. You see them as together. You'll follow them together. So anything that moves together, you see them as a single unit. So that is the common fate, and of course, one more thing which I did not mention is the common region, which was not originally postulated. Whatever we just discussed, they were there already. But some years later, I think the 90s, Stephen Palmer introduces the law of common region. For example, you put something into a bracket, okay? A and B, you put it inside a bracket, and you put C and D in another bracket. Just because there is a boundary, A and B will be considered as one unit, and C and D will be considered another unit because of, or even if you have A, B within one bracket and another bracket A, B, but you will see one AB here and one AB there because they are bounded by a common region. So that is the law of common region. Contiguity we have seen, continuity, common fate we have seen. The law of pregnance is a kind of overarching principle. I did mention about symmetry. So pregnance is a German word again, simplicity, meaning simplicity. See, we human beings love simplicity, harmony, symmetry, coherence. This is something naturally we seek and desire. Yeah, when we sometimes we may get bored, but ultimately we will come back to this. So this pregnance is applied to principles of perception that I would, if any stimuli is in front of me, I won't complicate it. See, you could see here is in a very jumbled way also. I can see here like 5 circles, the Olympic rings, interconnected with each other. It's a very simple, holistic kind of thing. But I can see this as a jumbled kind of wire, or 3 semicircles on top, and elliptical kind of shape, ellipse shape in between. I could see, in multiple ways, or one sphere divided into 3 regions or 2 regions. But we simplify. We just say that, yeah, there are 5 rings, done. So that is law of pregnance. So this, I always see this law of pregnance as an overarching principle. Am I clear? Am I audible? Just give me some confirmation, because I'm just speaking, no interaction. So is everything okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So I did mention about reversible figures, right? We did talk about it. When we talked about the figure ground, I told you sometimes we get confused about what is the figure and what is the ground. One such example is this Necker's cube, named after Necker. So this sometimes in 3 ways it can be seen. Some people see it as just a 2-dimensional figure, Some people see, it as a cube pointing down, and sometimes a cube pointing up to the right. So cube pointing down to the left, or cube pointing up to the right. 2 ways you could see it. You might have all known about it, so you could check it later on. So the 2 representations are given on the right side. On top right, you see the cube pointing down to the left, and on the bottom you see the cube pointing up to the right. So there are 2 ways. It will keep flipping. Sometimes people don't even see a 3D cube. They see just a two-dimensional drawing, and they cannot move beyond the two-dimensional drawing. So this kind of thing also proves that there is a lot of subjectivity at the perceptual level. There is kind of things are not as they seem to be, and your brain can keep interpreting and reinterpreting them. This kind of thing is still puzzling for us. We are yet to resolve why these things keep happening, but definitely it highlights the nature of perception. Another thing is this phase or vase. So it's also called as Rubin's phase vase. So if you look at the black only as the figure and the white as the ground, then you will see a vase. But if you see that contoured part and white as the figure and black as the background, then you will see two faces seeing each other. So this is named after Rubin. So this is another example of ambiguous or two-dimensional form. Sometimes prior exposure, if I show you a vase picture, clear vase picture, and then ask you to see this, probably you will see the vase. Or if you are exposed to two faces facing each other, a much more unambiguous picture, and then see this, then you will see the face only. So this Necker's cube and Rubin's phase are good examples of ambiguous figures where we get confused about to select which is the figure or which is the ground. I think I have already explained it, so I will skip to this slide. One more example, and this is actually a concept that bridges philosophy and psychology. Actually, this Fiona McPherson is a philosopher. So she did use, of course, the inspiration comes from Gestalt psychology, that we have something called Gestalt switch. Okay. Suddenly, at one point, you will see it in a particular way, as in these cases, you might see a vase or only a face, or you might see these cubes in particular orientations. So these things, it happens at a point. That point is called Gestalt switch. In this illusion, you could see, if you focus on the right end of it, you see a rabbit, and the projection on back of its head, that is its ear. But if you focus on this left side part, you see a beak and extending to the head of a duck or a goose or something like that. And this can also keep shifting from duck to rabbit and rabbit to duck, and because of the Gestalt switch. So, well, we all have some concepts and ideas related to these things, but many illusions, we have not decoded it 100% how these things happen. So this is Gestalt switch. Moving on to depth perception. So what is this depth perception? Of course, in a classroom, I might be more interactive, but today being a demo, I'm just speeding it up. Okay. We will go for the interaction very soon. So depth perception is the three-dimensional perception. Maybe it could be literally the depth, standing on something and looking down and figuring out the depth, or it could be something in front of you, how far away something is, and you are able to see that has a not only height and width, but also a depth to it as a three-dimensional structure, and you understand that occupies a particular position in your visual space. So that is a depth perception. There was a big debate about whether it is you are born with it or not, whether you learn it or you are born with it. We have not resolved it 100%, but definitely one thing we are sure: if ever you are having depth perception, it happens very early in your life, very, very early in your life. So even during infancy, so we have not come to a conclusion that it is 100% genetic, or you are born with the ability to perceive depth. Maybe there is a little bit of both nature and nurture, but definitely very early in your life, even at the stage of infancy, you are capable of perceiving depth. You might all have heard about that visual cliff experiment. Gibson, Eleanor Gibson's visual cliff experiment, where the baby refuses to crawl towards the mother when it sees a cliff-like illusion. which is more of an illusion because of the design of the tablecloth, but it refuses to move. And even babies placed at the visual cliff shows who those babies which cannot crawl, which are much younger, their heartbeat increases. So that is one thing. And we have also found out that people who never had sight for a very long period of time and their vision was restored pretty late in their life, they are finding it very difficult to perceive them, as if some kind of exposure is needed. There is probably a critical period for learning of depth perception. That is what we try to understand. So when it comes to depth perception, there are two ways you could perceive depth. One set of clues or cues are called as monocular cues, which are otherwise known as pictorial depth cues, because when you draw a picture and you need to give an illusion of depth, you need to, for example, you see this word 3D, and the way it is painted, the way it is, the shadows, the darkness and lightness, all those things are brought in that thing, gives you illusion of depth. There is actually no depth there, just a two-dimensional figure, but it gives you illusion of depth because of some cues given there. That's why it's either called as monocular cues, because even with one eye, you could perceive depth. That is why it's called monocular cues, and otherwise known as pictorial depth cues. The other one is binocular cues, which you require both the eyes at the same time to perceive depth. So let's get into that. So we'll get into the monocular cues. So whenever you give shadow, you get an illusion that it has some kind of width, height, depth, and other kind of things, 3 dimension. That is why when sun is there, the shadow falls on this side. That is an illusion that you could create. Something that is bigger, you perceive it to be closer to you. Something that's smaller, you perceive it to be far away from you. Of course, in reality, you always mix monocular cues, binocular cues. You may not use everything. You might give different weightages to different cues, but your brain will appropriately use a combination of cues to arrive at the depth perception. Then you have interposition. One thing is hiding the other. So what is being hidden is back far away. What is in front of you is closer to you. So distance and depth perception, they are same. Then you have the blur effect. Something that is blurred out is far away. Which is hazy. Anything that is not very clear is supposed to be far away. That is very clear is near. Texture gradient, again, the granular structure is much more obvious, clear, and it becomes less clear as it goes far away. In reality, that's how it will be, but you could represent it in a picture also. Aerial perspective, something that's above the horizon, that is something lower is considered to be far away, and something that is higher will be considered as closer to you. So when you see a ship sailing far away, you could understand this example. Linear perspective is like the road. When you're standing one end of the empty road and you see the lines of the road, outer lines of the road converging to a single point towards the horizon. So that is a linear perspective. So these are the monocular cues. Apart from this, you also have motion parallax as a monocular cue and accommodation as a monocular cue. So what is this motion parallax? When you're traveling in train, anything that is closer to you will be rushing in the opposite direction, away from you, faster. And anything that is far away, be it a hill or a house in a distance, would be traveling with you for some time, slowly. So based on the relative movement, the speed of the movement, direction of the movement, you could figure out what is close to me, what is far away from me. So that is motion parallax. Then we have accommodation. Accommodation is related to the ciliary muscles, how they hold the lens. And if you are looking far away, the muscles relax and the lens get flattened as you see on the left. And on the right, you see it's bulging, where the ciliary muscles push it. And when you're looking something closer, the lens will be compressed by the muscles. When the muscles relax, it becomes flattened and you can look far. Even though both the eyes are involved here, each eye is separate in this scenario because the accommodation happens individually in each eye, and they cannot happen at one eye at a particular accommodation, another eye, but no, it won't happen. It will happen in the same way. That's why it's called as a monocular view. It's not like even with one eye closed, accommodation will happen in the eye that is open. So that is why it is accommodation is also called as a monocular view. So just revising, you have light and shade, relative size, interposition, blur, texture gradient, aerial perspective, linear perspective. Then we have the motion parallax and accommodation as the monocular views. Moving on, we will go to the binocular views. So whenever you are focusing something on your nose, something close to your face, then your eyes will converge. Both the eyes will come together. Otherwise, they will slightly go away from each other, not to the extreme ends, but they will definitely not be closer to each other as you see now. There is convergence. Another binocular view is the binocular disparity. You could see in the picture 65 millimeter is written on the bottom. So there is a gap of 65 millimeter between the two eyes. Therefore, each eye has a different image of the scenario in front of you, as the above two pictures demonstrate. I'll just blow it up for you. So when you close the right eye and see something using only the left eye, you see a particular image. And when you close the left eye and see the right only with the right eye, then you see a slightly different image. And these two images will be combined by the brain to arrive at the depth perception. That is what we call binocular disparity. So this binocular disparity is greater for objects that are close, in the sense that if the object is too far away, then you won't be able to perceive the depth. So that ability to perceive depth will get reduced as the distance increases. Moving on to the illusions part. So be very clear, illusion is a perception. Maybe it is a distorted perception. Maybe what you perceive doesn't match with reality. Nevertheless, illusion is perception. Unlike hallucination, which has no basis outside. This illusion is because of something characteristic of some stimuli that is outside. Whereas hallucination, there is no necessity for any stimuli outside. It is purely originating from your brain. Okay, you might hear somebody speaking to you, you might see some colors. All these things originates from your brain. It has nothing to do with the outside world at all. Whereas in illusion, it can be purely due to physics also, like mirage. But many a times it's because of a combination of the characteristic of stimuli in front of you and the way your brain normally interprets things. Because of this combination, intersection, you will experience illusions, which we will be demonstrating very soon. So illusions can be because of early sensory process going wrong or malfunctioning. Not malfunctioning, that's how it happens for everyone. Or somewhere at a higher level, at the visual cortex level also it can happen. So one example, this color after images. You stare at green for a long time and then shift your eye to a white screen. You see red. This is the color after image. There is no red color there, but you are able to see this because of the activation of opponent process cells, the red-green cells at the lateral geniculate nucleus of thalamus. Then there is another example, Hermann grid illusion, which I will show you next. So you could see whenever you shift your eye to the left or right, you will see some gray spots at the intersections. There is no gray spot there. When you focus on that spot, it will go away. But in the peripheral vision, you will see the gray spots in other intersections. So this is primarily because of the way the simple cells, there are three types of cells called simple cells, complex cells, and hypercomplex cells. So the simple cells which respond to certain things and particular orientations, because of that only we perceive this illusion. As we keep saying, all illusions, we have not decoded how we experience these things, but yes, to some extent we have understood. If you say, for example, if these lines are not straight, these boxes are not like rectangles, but curved at ends, then this illusion goes away. So basically, somehow certain stimuli and the way your brain normally interprets things, when they come together, you have an illusion. So Hermann grid illusion is another example. This is Hubel and Weisel who came up with, they did this experiment in cats and monkeys, of course. So they discovered something called feature detectors, which are specialized cells, three types of cells: simple cells, complex and hypercomplex cells, which deal with different aspects of visual perception, pattern recognition. Simple cells are edge detectors. Complex cells, they adjust at particular angles, and hypercomplex cells will talk about things like more aspects like the degrees of angles and length and other kind of features. Okay. We also have motion detectors. Anything that moves automatically catches our eye. There are some cells which will respond only to those stimuli which keep moving. So these kind of receptors are always there. So this was discovered by Hubel and Weisel. Moving on to other illusions, Muller-Lyer illusion. So you all know about it. The length of the line is same on the top left figure, but the arrows are pointing inwards in the left figure, and they are pointing outwards on the right figure. But you perceive the left one to be longer than the right one, because they say that you transfer your every day-to-day experience onto these pictures. Because of that, you see this illusion. For example, on the left, you see the diagram, a corner of a room which is far away from you. The corner is far away from you, and you compare that to the top picture on the left, and on the right bottom you see the the outside corner of the building that's projecting towards you. The left, the corner of the room is away from you. On the right, you see the corner of the building that is protruding towards you. This is one example, because there is something called carpentered world hypothesis. Carpentered world hypothesis. I will get back to that slide very soon. Carpentered world hypothesis was given by Segal and other people. They found out that this Muller-Lyer illusion, only the Westerners or people in the developed world see it. But people from some African tribes, like you see these people who live in these kind of huts on the right side, they don't see this illusion. They say, yeah, both the lines are of same length. I don't see any difference. So why does this happen? So Segal said that this is carpentered world hypothesis. People are being exposed to straight lines, angles, because that's how we build our housings and offices, like rectangles and corners and angles. So because of that, our day-to-day experience get transferred to this Muller-Lyer picture, and you see the illusion. Well, that is one example. But another example is a misapplied size constancy. Because on the top left figure, we see that it's like a corner away from me. Therefore, I will magnify it in my brain. Whereas the right one, I will see it as something projecting towards me, so it's closer to me, so I won't magnify it. So because I try to adjust for my perceived distance. I think one is far away, one is nearer. And since it's far away, to maintain constancy, size constancy, I magnify it in my brain. Because of that misapplied size constancy, which comes from the exposure to these kind of buildings, this kind of carpentered world. That is what Segal talks about. So moving on to the moon illusion, another example of misapplied size constancy. You all might have seen the full moon rising at the horizon is not only different in color, but also looks to be very huge and beautiful, right? When the same full moon, after some hours, when it is up in the sky, it is whiter and it's smaller. I'm not talking about the yellow and white. That's probably physics will answer you. But psychologically, why it looks bigger and smaller, we have one partial explanation. It may not be the perfect or complete explanation, but what it says is at the horizon, there are a lot of things obstructing the moon. I'll show you the picture. So, for example, when the moon is rising, you see this bridge and the hut, whatever that is in front of the moon, or you might see some trees, buildings, other kind of things. And these things tell me that if you remember the monocular cube, let's briefly go there. Monocular cube, yeah. You saw this interposition. Something that's hidden is far away and I magnify it in my head. I make it bigger. Okay, something that's front, I think it's closer to me. So when you see this moon illusion, it gives you a sense of depth and you believe that, it's far, far away. And then, but when it's up in the sky, I don't have any clues. The sky is a very dark space. Even if I have here and there stars, it doesn't give me any kind of depth cue or distance cue. Because of that, pardon me, because of that, we perceive it to be equivalent to that of the size on our retina. Up in the sky, whatever the size of it is on our retina, we see it literally like that. But when it's in the horizon, we artificially magnify it because we get distance cues, monocular distance cues of interposition. Moving on to illusion of movement, there are different types of illusory movements. One is autokinetic effect in a completely dark room. This is not a perfect representation, excuse me for that, but you should imagine that it's a completely dark room. You see a spot of light, nothing else. I don't know what is the background, where it is it a 3D thing, nothing. I don't have any information. If I keep on staring at that light, the light initially would be stationary, which is stationary, but if I keep on staring it for some time, after some time I will start seeing the light moving. This is called autokinetic effect. One explanation for this is because of the saccadic movement in your eye. Your eye, constantly keeps doing micro movements, micro saccadic movements. Because of that, you get this, and you don't have any feedback mechanism to tell you that it is your eye which is moving and not the light which is moving. I don't have any kind of feedback to confirm that. Therefore, my brain gets confused about it and thinks that it is a light which is moving. So that is autokinetic effect. Then you might have known about the stroboscopic motion, where you the same principle for animation, movies, what else? Even this, movies and animation. This is how you do it. When you take a series of photos and move them at a particular speed, you see them as a continuous picture, as you see it here. So there is called stroboscopic motion. A stroboscope is an instrument which used to present it at a particular speed. And 5 phenomena, which was originally given as an example by Max Wertheimer for this continuity. You see here the light is running in anti-clockwise movement. The light is not running. It is lights are switched on in rapid sequences, but you see them as a continuous movement. Because persistence of vision effect is there, you know that in sensory register, whatever they will remain there for few milliseconds, and 10 to 12 separate images per second. If you keep presenting it, 1/15th of a second, each thing will be staying there when other image is coming in. So there will be a connect, and we will be seeing them as a movement. So this 5 phenomena or stroboscopic phenomena, they are all same. Then see, at least here some kind of movement. I won't say movement, but some kind of change is happening here. Here the changes, the light is, different lights are getting switched on, and different lights are getting switched off. Or in this case, I'm moving flipping the pages, or I'm presenting the images at a particular speed. So something is actually happening. Here, it is a static image. It's a static image. There is no movement there. There is no switching on, switching off. There is no flipping of books here. But if you keep moving your eyes slowly, or if you focus on one of this picture, you will see the nearby picture is rotating. Some kind of movement is happening. So how do we see this motion in static images? Is it because of placement of black and white close to each other? Maybe. Is it because of the curvature? Maybe. There are some reasons why it happens. So based on the brightness, here in this case, white will reflect more light than the black one. So luminance, the color arrangement, because of that, your receptors might be processing it at slightly different speeds, maybe because of that. Another important thing is eye movements also contribute. If you see that when you are focusing on one thing, the neighboring one, when you move it here, again, probably the eye movement is also correlated with this perception of these illusions. So that is what they say. I'm moving on to the last few things. So perceptual set. what is perceptual set, otherwise known as perceptual expectancy. As I told earlier, whatever we learn, whatever our memories are there, whatever experiences are there, based on that we perceive things differently. As you could see in this example, that letter in the middle of the 5 pictures can be interpreted easily as B if you see only that A and C. If it is placed in between A and C, the same thing will be perceived as B. Yes, closure happens here, true. Apart from that, it is seen as B just because of presence of A and C. Immediately you are applying a kind of schema of okay, alphabet, English alphabet. When you place the same thing without any change along with 12 and 14, then you see it easily as 13. So it is a context. It is because you expect it to be a number and not as a letter, not as an alphabet. So perceptual set, of course, there are many other examples. I'm not dwelling into all those examples. So expectancy definitely influences, to see, and this is based on your experiences, what you have learned and other kind of things. If somebody knows English, then they will see this as B. But somebody who doesn't know English at all, then for them, it's just a jumble of stimuli. That's it, nothing more. And they may not see it, or they may see it very differently. I don't know what they will see, but yeah. So that is the perceptual set. Perceptual set sometimes helps you, sometimes can lead you astray. Then culture and perception. There are 2 things which I want to focus. One is the devil's trident or devil's tuning fork. On top, you could see it will. If you keep seeing it very closely, suddenly you'll see 3 legs. Sometimes you'll see 2 legs. When you try to draw it continuously, imagining it as a 3-dimensional structure, as a tuning fork, you will get confused about it. Again, like in carpentered world hypothesis, it is the Western developed world people who are exposed to the concept of tuning fork. What is a tuning fork? You know that U-shaped thing attached to a rod, and you could strike it and it will vibrate. So that is a tuning fork. So when you know what is a tuning fork, or a fork is, tuning fork or any fork, knife and fork, that eating fork, whatever it is, you immediately imagine as a 3-dimensional structure. And when you try to reproduce, you get confused. Whereas a person who is not exposed to these modern equipments, they will see it just as a picture and easily draw it, reproduce it. So in this case, it is the people from less developed societies, technologically less developed societies, they don't have illusion, but the developed society people have illusion. When it comes to drawing upside down face, it is the people from the less developed societies struggle, whereas the people from developed societies find it easy because they are exposed to 2-dimensional pictures printed in books and other kind of things. I'm not saying art is unknown to tribal people, but the relative frequency with every individual sees a 2-dimensional picture is high in a developed society, literate society. So they will see it as the shading and other kind of things. They will give it according to how the picture is presented, and they would have no complication, the developed society people. Whereas the tribal people will find it very difficult to draw it. So devil's trident and drawing an upside down face demonstrates how culture also can create perceptual set. Okay, can create troubles for us. Already we have seen that carpentered world hypothesis and Muller-Lyer illusion. So culture has a strong influence on perception. As I already talked about these 2 concepts, top-down processing and bottom-up processing. In fact, this culture influencing perceptual set or this carpentered world hypothesis, all these kind of things are examples of top-down processing. Bottom-up processing is where I see a point and point in each point of a stimuli, putting them together, and I then from the basic data I generate the larger picture. Whereas top-down processing, I have an expectation. For example, even if I type down some letters, if I put F dash C K, that it's U in between these letters, because I have this expectation. When I see these words, I know what this word is. So even if one letter is missing, I will fill it up. Top-down processing. But many times, for example, if you are learning a foreign language, and first time you are, letter by letter you are reading it, then probably you're using a bottom-up processing. So both has their own advantages and limitations. Bottom-up processing is slow but accurate. Top-down processing is fast, but it can lead you astray. Does perception influence thinking? Yes. Thinking can influence perception. Same way, perception can also influence thinking. For example, we automatically assume that something which is bigger, they should be weighing heavier because that's our day-to-day experience. Okay, and you will think that way. When you see a big image, you will automatically think it to be heavier, or darker objects are said to be heavier than something that is lighter in color, probably because of our day-to-day experiences. So we also transfer perception and get our thinking influenced by perception. Does perception influence metacognition? Yes, they do influence metacognition. What is metacognition? Can anyone tell me? What is metacognition? Any one of you? How do you define it? Put in a very simple way. Don't give me a technical definition, dog. What is metacognition? Okay, so metacognition is thinking about thinking, to put it very simply. So you have an awareness of your own thinking process. You are not only thinking, and you are aware that you are thinking and how you are thinking, and whether it is going in the right track or not, what kind of changes have to be made to your thinking, to your reasoning, to your memorizing, to your learning. Everything is coming under metacognition. So perception influences not only thinking, but also thinking about thinking. So basically, you know that, if you highlight something, you will remember it better. If you put it in bold, you will remember it better. If you use a bigger font, you will remember it better. So that's why we sometimes underline, we sometimes highlight certain things. So that is what, very simple thing, but you should understand that how our thinking process or our metacognition can influence perception. Perception can also influence us thinking and metacognition. Coming to the last part of the presentation, magic and perception. In fact, magic is a very interesting area to understand about human perception, because I am not sure about real magic, like in Harry Potter and stuff like that. But most of the magic that we are exposed to are based on manipulating our perception, manipulating our attention, and those kind of things. Certain kind of biases and fixed assumptions with respect to perception that we have. Because of these things, it happens. So, for example, an object which is shaken up and moved up and down in quick succession, it will give you illusion of bending. And they say that it is because of certain types of neurons called end-stop neurons present in the visual cortex, which are sensitive not only to the edges. The simple cells are sensitive to edges only, whereas end-stop neurons are sensitive to motion and edges. We discussed about presence of motion detectors, presence of simple cells which are sensitive to edges. Now, a combination of both these things, end-stop neurons, can do both these things. And when you trigger that kind of thing using a particular speed of movement of something, then you get a illusion of something getting bent. So that's one example given in this book. So let me move to the other presentation. Probably 20 minutes or something I will take. After that, Mr. Muthu will spend half an hour to give a demo. Sandhya, is it unmuted? Can I expect people to?
Yeah, participants can unmute and.
Okay, fine. So let's have this small quiz. So this is in the memory chapter. This is the UGC memory syllabus. I'm skipping it for saving time. So I've given you a picture here, and remember that this is memory. This is memory chapter, and I've given you some pictures. What comes to your mind when you see this name, Francis Robinson? When you see this picture doing something, when you see, don't connect this 3R to reduce, reuse, recycle. Please take it away from your head. I just use the word 3R, that's it. And then you have some alphabets, and a combination of these things. Does something come to your mind? Any one of you? Okay. Give me a memory enhancement technique. Mostly basic textbooks, final, additional some box or last one page, how to improve your memory, practical suggestions. They would have talked about these things. Yeah. Are you people there? I am not receiving any responses. Okay. Have you heard of this PQRST method? PQRST method, or the earlier one, which is called SQR3. Survey, question, read, recite, review. This Francis Robinson originally suggested survey, question, read, recite, review, otherwise called as SQR3. Later on, he developed that into PQRST method: preview or pre-read, question, read, state, and test. So PQRST method is a memory enhancement technique. So whenever you try to have an overall understanding, then you convert whatever you are going to study as questions and answers. Then you do the actual reading. Then you keep repeating it, like maintenance rehearsal or something like that. Then you actually test yourself: are you getting it correct or not? So that is the PQRST method. So SQR3 and PQRST, Francis Robinson. Okay. So that's one thing. This is the book that he wrote, SQ3R, the Read, Recite, Review, Effective Study by Francis Robinson. So I use this picture so that you have a very clear mental picture of this SQ3R or PQRST method by Francis Robinson. Can I move to the next one? Let's see how you are able to answer the next one. I know they are slightly challenging. This is a English, wrong English. I mean, faulty use of English language in some Asian countries. Same but different. And I have put U curve, x-axis and y-axis, and I have written effect on memory. So, does any principle or hypothesis come to your mind which can connect based on similarity? Same but different. So, similarity and memory. Are you aware of any hypothesis or principle that connects, given by two people? So it's named after these two people, dash hypothesis, that connects the degree of similarity and memory. Okay, leave this. Can anyone tell me how similarity can affect memory? Any one of you? It's absolute silence on your side. So give me a break. Tell me what is good. Is it good or bad? No one want to answer. Anyone? Is it good or bad? If two things are similar, is it easy to remember them or difficult to remember? Leave this particular answer. Just give me an answer for this, what I am asking you. If two things are similar to each other, would it strengthen your memory or would it confuse you? Anjali Chaudhary, are you there? Jayashri, are you there? I'm not hearing anything. Okay. I don't know, is there any glitch or anything? Moving on. So it's called Skaggs-Robinson hypothesis. Skaggs-Robinson hypothesis. Basically, what they say is if something is, two things are identical, then it's great. No problem. That's fine. Absolutely fine. If two things are different, then also no problem. I know that is this is that. No confusion for it. But if you look at this curve, on the left end, they are very identical. And when the similarity decreases to a moderate level, that's where the interference is maximum. So, two concepts which are similar to each other, not identical, not different, but moderate similarity, that is where maximum confusion and interference will happen. So basically, this Skaggs-Robinson hypothesis talks about the connection between the degree of similarity and how good or bad your memory is. So you could read about it later. Basically, either there could be proactive interference or retroactive interference because of this similarity, but not identicalness. So, two books, I just put it up. I couldn't get the photo of Skaggs. Ernest Burton Skaggs. On the left, you could see. On the right, you could see Edward Stevens Robinson. Readings in General Psychology. I was able to source this photo. So this is Skaggs and Robinson hypothesis. I don't know. The webinar people were more proactive. Here, I'm not getting any kind of response. Here I have given a story. This is about a person who was a poet, Simonides. So he was going somewhere, and he was supposed to sing his songs, but he was kind of thrown out. That was happened. He was there for a brief period of time in that particular building where different people were there. Then he came out to meet someone, and before he could go back, the building collapsed because of earthquake. Everybody in that building died, and luckily he survived. So to identify the bodies who were there, his help had to be taken. So he was able to recreate the entire image. This person was standing at that left corner, that person was sitting on the throne in front of me, these persons were standing behind me, and based on the position of where these bodies were, because they were all badly mutilated, they were able to identify. So what memory technique is this? Another clue I am giving you. This particular memory technique has a name. Sandhya, is it okay? Now the technical glitch is over, right? People can unmute and speak, right?
People can unmute and speak.
Okay. Yeah, please give me an answer. What is this memory technique? This is the BBC Sherlock Holmes series. I know there are a lot of fans for this Cumberbatch series. So, what is he doing? What is this technique called? There are different names. Whatever name, there is a more technical name which we use in psychology, or a very popular name that's available. Any one of you? You could type it in the chat box. If Sandhya can see it and let me know, that's also fine for me. What is this technique? I mean, some attempt. I mean, if you are not going to attempt, I'm not moving ahead. Give me some answer. I told you this person was able to recreate the image of this building, entire building, and he was able to remember clearly who was standing where, and because of that, he was able to exactly give the names of all the people present in that building. So, what is this memory technique called? So, you don't want to attempt also. Okay, give me some mnemonic techniques. Names of some mnemonic techniques. Anything. There is a concept called mnemonics, right? M-N-E-M-O-N-I-C-S. Mnemonics. Give me any mnemonic. Okay, any one of you just unmute and tell me. I don't know, because I am really doubtful whether you are able to speak or not. Any one of you?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
They are able to speak. Participants, please unmute and answer.
Say hi, hello, something. I don't know the answer. Anything. Tell me anything. I'm just bored of hearing my own voice, and of course, I am hearing only Sandhya's voice. Is it not? Okay, fine. So things are working. Don't worry about it. It's called the method of loci. It's called the method of loci. Okay, or the memory palace technique. Of course, the Sherlock Holmes series made it very popular. That he will reimagine, the entire, he will reconstruct the entire places and in his mind, and he will, of course, this was not very explicit in the novel, but in the Cumberbatch's Sherlock Holmes, it was made popular. It's called the memory palace technique, or method of loci technique, or the Roman room technique. Okay, so these are the origin story only I told you now. So skipping on to the next one. Now, with the kind of toughness, I believe that you are not going to answer the further two things. Okay, this is Edward Geiselman. I will tell you the story and let me give you the answer. So Edward Geiselman, in the recent time, I think 2013 or something, he got an award in the name of a child abuse victim, because he, along with another person, Fisher, Ronald Fisher, they developed a particular kind of method which can be used with the witnesses. Okay, and when you are investigating a crime, sometimes some witnesses have good memory, some witnesses may not have good memory. Some people might have false memory. So to remove these errors and to produce maximum result, when you interview or interrogate a witness, they developed a particular technique. So I want the name of the technique developed by Geiselman and Fisher. Anybody? Okay, I will skip and go to the answer. It's called the cognitive interview technique. This is Ronald Fisher on the left and Edward Geiselman, cognitive interview. So what is this cognitive interview? Very simple, common sense kind of thing. I will go to the interview directly. Report all the details. Don't hold to any information, whether it is important, less important, whatever it is. Tell me whatever you know, whatever you saw. You don't decide what is important, what is not important. Whatever it is in your memory, you tell. Then you provide the context, you change the context, and ask them to talk about it. Okay? From your perspective, you tell. Now tell the same thing from another person's perspective, like Akira Kurosawa's movie. The same thing, same scene is seen by different people in different ways. The sequence are told in different ways by different people. Then the sequence will be changed from forward to backward, backward to forward. Probably they will start saying that, okay, start from morning, what did you do? Until the crime scene, what you saw. Then they will say, okay, now let's start from the crime scene, what you saw, then go back to your early morning schedule. So when you are doing all these things, suddenly that, yeah, sir, I remember that, I forgot to tell you, suddenly will come up in your mind. So in this way, you will get maximum information. So it's called as cognitive interview. It's a method of increasing the eyewitness testimony accuracy. Okay. So going to the last thing, hopefully Madalaimuthu is ready with this presentation. What is the name of the disease? I am trying to get. Just imagine that you are playing a game called Dumb Charade. In Dumb Charade, you cannot speak, but you will act it out. The other person has to guess the name or word. So I am trying to do this Dumb Charade using these pictures. Okay. So what disease is depicted here? You could see this fellow is drinking. You have a Russian psychologist on the left. Sergei is his first name. And you see B1 there. And you see arrows going down. And you see drink, because of drinking, this is going down. So this is vitamin B1. Vitamin B1 deficiency. This leads to, and we are discussing memory chapter. So what disease this could be? Anyone? This is something related to amnesia. But what is the name of the disease? Usually people who suffer from this disease initially have, pardon me?
Retrograde amnesia.
That is the amnesia. What is the disease which causes that? They start with anterograde and then retrograde. Both amnesia will be there for these people. But this disease is named after this Russian psychologist. Amnesia is the symptom. And this is caused, the amnesia is caused by a particular kind of disease named after this person's second name. Anybody? Good? Good attempt. Anybody else? I'm hearing someone telling something not clear. Can you come again? People who drink, who are alcoholics, they develop this disease because their level of B1, thiamine vitamin, will become very low, and this will damage certain parts of the brain. And because of that only, as she was saying, retrograde amnesia and anterograde amnesia happens. So what is the disease? Okay, we'll give you the name. So it's called Korsakov syndrome or Korsakov disease, named after Sergei Korsakov. In most of the basic books, I remember this even in Morgan and King book, you have this term Korsakov disease. So Korsakov disease is actually, there is another similar disease, or I would say that these two diseases happen in a sequence, that is called Wernicke's encephalopathy. Wernicke's encephalopathy is followed by Korsakov syndrome, both due to damage of these regions because of heavy drinking and low levels of B1 vitamin. So Korsakov syndrome or Wernicke's encephalopathy, these things, one of the major symptoms is amnesia, initially starting with anterograde amnesia, but slowly becoming retrograde amnesia also. Okay, so Korsakov syndrome is the answer. So Korsakov disease or Korsakov syndrome is the answer. So I'll just briefly go back. We discussed about a cognitive interview by Fisher and Geiselman, which is used to improve eyewitness testimony. We talked about memory palace or Roman room or method of loci, which is one of the mnemonic techniques by connecting visual image of a known place with that of what you have to remember. Then we discussed about Skaggs-Robinson hypothesis, which talks about, I will just read it out the first two lines, as similarity between the original task and the interpolated task is reduced from near identity, retention falls away to a minimum, that is the bottom of the U, and then rises again, but with a decreasing similarity. But of course, it may not reach, for example, to remember two identical things, I cannot have the same kind of memory for remembering two different things. Definitely, that's far, far better than moderately similar things. That is the Skaggs-Robinson hypothesis. And we discussed about the Francis Robinson. This Robinson is different from that Robinson. This is Francis Robinson. This is Edward Stevens Robinson. So there are many psychologists with similar surnames. You need to be very clear about whether it is a male or a female, whether it is that fellow or this fellow. Be very clear about it. Match the following and all. They would give you initials or the full name. So be very clear about which Thorndike you are talking about, which cattle you are talking about, which Robinson you are talking about. So Francis Robinson was the person between SQ3R method or the PQRST method. So that's it from me. Thank you. So over to thanks for listening. Probably the quiz was very tough. Sorry for that. But once you got the answers, you might have understood that all these things you know. It's not something alien. Okay. So it was only we tried to present it in a much more interesting way. That's it from me, and I think Mr. Muthu can take over from here. Muthu, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you continue?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay then. Okay then. Over to Muthu. Bye. Hope to see you in future. That's it from me.
Good evening. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Uh, okay. We'll discuss a few questions from psychological testing, and it will be of simple nature. And usually, you get from whatever we discuss today, there will be no 2 or 3 questions. Okay. Now, I'm sure you might have seen this chart. If you know this chart, you know, uh, you should be able to answer the question. Now, uh, probably you might have heard the term the norms. When we construct a psychological test, then when we standardize, we also give the norms for scoring. Say the norms is used to find out what is the relative position of someone, the score. Say if we have a percentage of somebody, then at least we know what out of 100 how much he got. Say if it is a percentile, then what is the position? Then if it is given in Z score, T score, or the IQ, all those things, certain scores will be given. And I'm not discussing the theories related to reliability validity, but there will be a case studies or the questions which will say this is the score of a person on a normalized T score was this, and what will be his position in terms of IQ, or if the percentile score is say 64, what will be T score? So they will ask you to transform the raw score into some standardized score, or from one standardized score to another standardized score. So this way, there will be generally one question will be asked. So we will see how to convert from one standardized score or raw score to another form. Hope you are, you are able to understand the background. You might have seen this. How many of you have already given the exam or anything? I think there are 3 or 4 participants apart from the host. Anyway, now either you can memorize this chart, or you try to understand this normal probability curve. Okay, see in the normal probability curve, so you have 0, then plus 1 standard deviation, plus 2 standard deviation, and plus 3 standard deviation. The population or the sample which can be fit within who lie is between minus 1 standard deviation to plus 1 standard deviation is 68.26%. So on the left of the mean, see when we standardized or normalized population is in which the mean, median, mode will be equal. So in the sense the standard deviation is 0. So standard deviation is 0. So on the plus 1 and minus 1 on both sides, say 34.13 and 34.13. Then between plus 1 standard deviation to plus 2 standard deviation is 13.59. So it goes on like this. So you need not remember this value, but at least you should know the cutoff point. Say between minus 1 standard deviation, what is the approximate score in terms of percentile? So it will be around 16. And again here, in terms of the percentile here, plus is the 84. So you need to remember this much. And Z score is nothing but the same as the this standard deviation. So Z score is say 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3, and the on the left hand side it is minus 1 minus 2 minus 3. And T score, usually it is important, usually they ask you to convert Z score to T score or T score to Z score. They used to ask this question, simple question earlier, but now they ask from percentile to T score, and sometimes from IQ to percentile, vice versa. So this is how question is asked. And earlier there used to be a question, straightforward questions. If you know this chart, and you will be able to directly match. Say for example, just to to understand, to get the feedback from you. Now, if I ask you, say that Z score of a person is +1, then what is the equivalent to T score of a person? So can you look at this chart and tell me? The person's raw score is, the raw score of a person corresponds to +1 in +1. Then what is the T score of the person? Can somebody tell me this? Somebody is there. It's Hope. Hope is there, and Malik. 60. Very good. So in the standardized form, the mean for the T score is 50, and the one standard deviation in the Z score corresponds to 10. Right? So for T score, the mean is 50 and the SD is 10. And say for IQ, the IQ SD is 15 and the mean is 100. So the same thing, in a standardized T score, a person gets 60, then what will be the corresponding IQ? 115. And similarly, if a person gets 85 in an IQ test, and what is his percentile position? So 85 is minus 1 standard deviation. So minus 1 standard deviation corresponds to 16 percentile. Hope you understand this.
Yes.
Now, generally, the questions were like this. The prior to, say, just 2 years back, prior to the computerization of the exam, the questions were straightforward, simple. And in fact, you need to remember the formula how to convert from Z to T. And I normally tell the students, you don't need, not to require to memorize all those formulas. Just remember this chart and this one. Z score not required because it is same as the standard deviation, the normal probability curve. And the other is T score, you have to remember 50 and 10. But now what they do is they change this base value. Now instead of saying, see, generally the T score is, the mean for T score is 50 and the standard deviation is 10. Now they say the questions in the normalized T score within the bracket, they will say 100 or 200. 100 or 200 or 150, sometimes 80, some random value give. And the SD is, say, instead of 50, 10, they make you 20. So M is 100 and SD is 20. So what we are supposed to do is in this chart we have to fix, say instead of 100, sorry, 50 in the normal thing, you have to consider it is 100, and instead of adding 10 and 10, you make it as 20 plus 20 and so on. So this is how we have to, only this much trick is there. So if you can understand this, I'm sure you will be able to answer at least one question. Sometimes they ask 2, 3 questions also in the case study. But if this particular case study in this format is not there, there will be another individual item questions in which you will be able to answer. Hope you have understood. Shall we try to solve this? We'll discuss the previous year questions related to this chart. Maybe you can, if you're there, you can note down, or
Yes.
you can take photocopy, or if you know, fine. We'll try to solve the question. Yeah, we'll go. Anyway, this was prepared for someone. This chi-square, it has nothing to do with the table. Since these some random questions will be there, we'll try to solve. Chi-square computed for a contingency table was based on 6 degrees of freedom. If the contingency table had 3 rows, and how many columns would be there? Now for a chi-square, in order to find out the degrees of freedom, we have to use this formula, df equal to r minus 1 multiplied by c minus 1.
Yes.
Sorry, am I audible?
Sir.
Yeah. So what is the answer? So they say the degrees of freedom was 6, and the number of rows are 3, and what is C? So you
4.
have
No, 3.
3 or 4?
4.
Yeah, 4. Good. And if you look at the previous, in the other year, they asked if the contingency table has 3 rows and 4 columns, what will be the degrees of freedom? It's 6, right? So what I
Yes.
say is, like, most of the time, with regard to the problems, they reframe the question in one or the other way. So yeah, since we'll see this question. See here, they are given Vijay obtained a percentile rank of 16 on a test. The normalized T score mean here 50 and SD is 10. Now what is the expected T score for Vijay? So the score is, actual score he got is 16. Now you have to convert this percentile score in terms of standard deviation or the Z score. So the Z score table, it is 0, 1, and here this side is -1. So if you can recall, it's 84, something closer to 84, and this is 16, right? So for 50 and 10, it means it is the equal correspondent thing. So 50 minus 10 is, since it corresponds to -1 standard deviation, then 50 minus 10 is 40. So that is -1, -1 standard. So the answer is since it is, not exactly like I've given it roughly, so the closer will be like 45. When we say it is a -1, then it must be 40. So the answer here, it is the closest is 45. Able to follow? Hello? Maybe we'll see one more question. Then you can ask me if you have any doubt, if you are not able to follow. So again, it is Wechsler. Now Wechsler, SD is, see here for Wechsler, they have not given what is the mean and SD. So for Wechsler, SD is 15 and the mean is 100, right? General IQ. So mean is 100. Now when they say 115, it means in terms of Z score, it is 1 standard deviation plus 1 standard deviation, right? So this is 100 and this is 115. Now what will be the equivalent for in terms of normalized t-score? Within the bracket they have mentioned normalized t-score, mean is 50 and standard deviation is 10. So 50, mean is 50 and standard deviation 10, and since it is on terms of +1, then you add 10, then it becomes 60. See, the answer is 60. Simple? I think it is very simple, right? Then we'll go to the next one. If you have understood this, I think there is only one person. Hope.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you have understood this. Are you able to follow
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, you take your time, and if you have not understood, please ask me. I'll explain again. Very simple, but maybe probably you may be seeing it for the first time.
Yes, sir. Actually, I'm master first year.
Okay. Then it is tough for you. Have you studied psychological testing or psychometric?
Yes, sir. In graduation, I will study.
Okay. Then you take probably try to understand this. Go through it again. Whatever I said, try to recall this picture and tell me. Are you able to see if you can understand it? Should I explain again?
Yes, please, sir.
Yeah. Now, see, the simple is T for T test. This for any normalized test. First, the base value you have to remember. I'll just say colloquially as a base value. The mean values for T score, it is 50 normalized score. And you add how much we are deviating from the mean. That's what standard deviation. So now I say 1 standard deviation on plus, then 2 standard deviation, and again -1 standard deviation, -2 standard deviation. Now since it is normalized, the standard deviation they say it is 10. So for T score, we add 10 for each 1 standard deviation. So first standard deviation you add 10, then becomes 60. Then standard deviation 2, then another add 10. So 10 is 70. Then if it is a -1 from mean, how much it is deviating? Then -10 is 40. Then from there, another one standard deviation. So that is -2. Or from here, it is -2. From here, 1. So 30. So this is what the Z score, T score. Z score is mean is 0 and +1 +2, that is a standard deviation. That's what we say Z score. Now, for IQ test, they consider the mean as 100 and standard deviation is 15. So you add 15, 100 plus 15 is 115. Then you add another 15, then it becomes 130. So if a person gets 2 2 in the Z score, his IQ is 130. In the other word, he gets 100, the mean. From mean, 2 standard deviation. So 2 in terms of IQ, 15 plus 15 is 30, plus with the mean 100, then it becomes 130. So either you can apply formula and calculate it, or just remember and mark it. So in this way, for what they have given is the IQ is 115. In this question, they have given mentioned IQ is 115. It means out of 115, what is the mean? Mean is 100. Then what is the, how much is the IQ? Sorry, the standard deviation? So 100 plus 15. So it means it is 1 plus 1 standard deviation. So plus 1 standard deviation, you have to find out what is plus 1 standard deviation for T score. That's what they are asking here. So in the T score, normalized T score, the mean is 50. And 1 standard deviation is 10. Therefore, the corresponding deviation IQ of 115 for T, the corresponding score will be 60. Able to follow?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Then solve this. What is the answer for this question? It's the same question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously it is 60. So you must be bold, confident enough to say the same question, and this is how UGC asks. And I have not framed it. These are all the copy paste from previous year question paper. 1 year they asked this way, the other year they asked this way. And since we find a little bit allergic to mathematics, we assume that we have allergy to mathematics, so we tend to ignore it. But now people started mastering it. That is different story. So be confident enough. Okay, this is slightly twisted. Now first let's read this question. Now what they say, they given the T, normalized T as mean is 100 and standard deviation as 20. And for Wechsler test, we have to find out. Now for the above test, what is the expected percentile rank for T score of 120? Now, you forget about what is this Wessler type deviation IQ score here. They have given you to confuse. Now, the simple thing you have to see is they have given certain value. Now, what is the value? They have given a T value, T score of 120. And they are asking you to convert it into percentile rank. So, you cover T. Generally, what is the T score format? Generally, the mean is 50 and SD is 10. So, one standard deviation plus one standard deviation is 60 plus 2 standard deviation is 70. And again, on the other side, it is 40 and 30. This is the format. Hope you remember. We have seen in the previous screen. Right? You are there?
Yes.
Now, yeah, what they are saying is for this particular test, the mean is 100 and standard deviation is 20. So instead of 50, you make it as 100. And instead of 10, you add 20. So it becomes 120. Now, this corresponds to, in terms of Z score, in terms of standard deviation, +1, right? Hope you are able to understand this, why it is +1. Yeah. Now, for +1, in terms of percentile, I told you it is 84. This is 68 and 68 and this is 16. Understood? So the answer is 84. Hope you are able to follow this. Good. Now try this. I think this is the same question. We'll go to the next one. Now when we say reliability and validity, if the correlation value, say if it is say above 0.3, then we say it is satisfactory. If it is above 0.6, it's a high, it is highly reliable. Say if it is above 0.8, then we say very high. Now, since the R value, the correlation is less than 0.3, then we say it is unsatisfactory. Now, the question is whether it is concurrent validity or predictive validity. Now, then let's see what is they are saying. Now, a newly developed test for assessing abstract reasoning and a well-established test of abstract reasoning are administered. Now, it is since there is a well-established test and they have developed a new test and finding out what is the correlation between these two. It means they are establishing a concurrent validity. So the answer is A, concurrent. So unsatisfactory concurrent validity. Maybe we'll cover the theories later. I mean, when in the regular class you come, we'll discuss what is reliability, what is validity, what are the types of reliability, validity, and how to establish. All those things we will see in the regular classes. But since it is a demo, I've taken these questions and these things you will be able to pick up and answer it. I'm sure this much is enough for net preparation. And there is something called Spearman-Brown formula. Have you heard about this?
Yes, sir. I heard about experiment theory.
You are done. So you are aware of all these things. Good. Good that you are aware of all these things. Probably then I'll skip this formula and go to the actual problem. Now they are saying they have developed a test and they found the odd and even part correlated by 0.4. Then after applying Spearman-Brown formula, then what will be the they are given the statement the corrected reliability would be 0.8 or 0.4 or between 0.4 to 0.8, lesser than 0.4. So what is the answer? See, always remember this Spearman-Brown formula. In this formula, the value will be more than what is more than the correlation given. After adjusting, it will be more than whatever is given. It will be more than that. So generally, you can say simply it's between 0.4 to 0.8, or you can apply this formula and find out. So 2 into 0.4, 2 into 0.4 and divide by like this point, not minus. Then 1.4, 1 plus 0.4. So it's 2 into 0.4 will be, actually it will be 0.8. In other words, it is 8 divided by 14. So you find out the answer, then you'll get it. Otherwise, so this is how you given here. So 0.57. So 0.57 is between 0.4 to 0.8. So answer is C. Have you seen this problem? Have you solved this earlier? Since you are, you said you are aware of it, you might have solved this earlier. Is it a repetition for you? I'm asking you in order to understand your background, so that when we are conducting the classes, that I can raise the standard. That's why I'm asking. Or if you have not understood, probably I can understand. Hope you have understood this. Yeah. Okay. Then we'll go to them. So I've given the table. So some people will say, sir, it is difficult for me to use the formula and apply. Is there a way to memorize? So there is a way to memorize. Given the table also, you can memorize and go. So that's also another way. Okay. This is actual question asked, and it is a little tricky. So they have given a test has 50 items, and the Cronbach alpha is 0.8, and it is randomly divided into two halves into some length. What will be the correlation between the two halves? How to answer this question? Now, when we say it is a 2 half, then it means, then say 25. Now you forget about whether it is 25 or whether 20 or 30, whatever. Now the Spearman-Brown reliability is when there are two tests, you find the correlation. First you find the split of, since it's 2 half, then you have split of reliability. And you apply the Spearman-Brown reliability, then you get the Cronbach alpha, the value, some reliability value. Now, the other word is, what they are saying is, the value is 8.0. Then what will be the split of score? The other way. So it should be somewhere between these. 0.8 is somewhere between these. 0.6 and 0.7. So between 0.6 0.7 is 0.67. This is the answer. Either you can go with this way or you can apply in this way in the formula mathematically. 2x divided by 1 plus x. equal to 0.8. 0.8, because that's what the Spearman-Brown adjustment formula is. So 2R divided by 1 plus RH. So you apply here, I think you'll get 3 by 4. 3 by 4. Understood this? Okay, good. So there are few more things, and I think only you are here. Shall we move further or stop here?
Probably, I think it's 9. So,
Yes.
probably we would wind up here.
Okay, sir.
And yeah, over to Jinto or Sandhya, anybody? May I know the name? Whoever is remaining here, only one student we have. What's your name?
My name is Asa.
Asha? Asa?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for patiently listening to us until the end. I hope it was useful for you. Then I think we could call it a day. Jinto and Sandhya, you are there. We will wind up the session. Is it okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, if you are interested, you can contact any one of us. You could use the number given in the poster or the Google form, and we could provide you additional details. Okay. Thanks, Asa. Thanks, Jinto. Thanks, Madalaimuthu. So, we will end it here. Good night.
Okay. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, sir.